Thanks for joining us on the Marriage Puzzle Podcast. I'm Julie.
And I'm Thomas.
We're continuing our podcast series of 15 lessons after 15 years of marriage. We made it all the way to lesson 12 and
A dozen
or
episodes.
almost to the home stretch of the 15 lessons we've learned. And there's no particular order of these. However, we did purposely put this one, lesson 12, which is called Apologize and Forgive Genuinely, right after the fight for resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you could apologize and you could forgive for lots of things, but it's probably going to come naturally right after a conflict or something. And if you're fighting for resolution, then you should be willing to apologize and forgive. But we're going to be talking about what that means to do it genuinely. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, if you haven't heard the last episode, Fight for Resolution, make sure you either pause now and go listen to that one first and then come back so that it's in the order that it might actually happen to you. Or you can do it kind of prequel movie style and listen to this one first and then go back and listen to that one afterwards. So
yeah, have fun with it. Listen to it with your spouse, or just make sure you're listening and then discussing it together.
Mm-hmm.
Because, apologizing and forgiving, it sounds so simple, but
it's freaking hard.
It's hard. And I mean, so I was trying to think, like, what keeps us from apologizing? If it's so simple, if you're just listening, it's like, I got that. But
it's like that old saying, like, it's simple, but it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a simple thing to do, but it's really hard to do.
I think the biggest thing that keeps us from apologizing, that's why it's not easy, is pride. And we're so prideful, we don't want to say that we're prideful. We don't want to say we have pride, but it's the pride in us that thinks maybe the other person should be the one apologizing to, you should apologize to me instead. Or you should apologize first before I then apologize for, because we all probably have both could apologize. We both have things to, if it was a conflict that we both contributed to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's the number one thing is pride. Because you don't want to be wrong or you want to be right.
Mm-hmm. Those are basically the same thing, but they can seem like very different things. If you feel like you're right, then you're not wrong. So I mean, it's just really important, I think, to list out both of those. That it's not just about not wanting to be wrong, but also having the desire to win and be right. Which, to kind of tease back to the last episode, it's not always about just winning and being right. It's about getting to a resolution that works best for your family unit.
Yeah. And I think something even I personally have struggled with is, which, keeps me from apologizing is, you may not realize that you need to apologize, which I've had to do some, deep down soul digging to realize that's pride too.
Mm-hmm.
But just, if it's not like, well, it's not a matter of right or wrong. I just don't have anything to apologize for. Well, take a step back, dig deep, and pretty sure, if you lay down your pride, you'll definitely have something to apologize for.
Yeah, so while you're listening to this episode and hearing that, if that's something that you start thinking like, okay, maybe I do struggle with that. Maybe I do feel like I don't need to apologize or just not realize it, like it just doesn't compute. If you start getting that feeling right now about yourself, then that's a good sign that you probably need to do that soul searching as well and realize, okay, that's something I need to get better on when I'm caught in that situation. Let me find something that I have done to apologize for rather than just pointing the finger at somebody else.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And just saying I'm sorry, because you want to move on from something. I mean, that's another perspective to look at. If you're just saying you're sorry just to try to move on, just to end the argument, bypass it, you're missing the deeper lesson that was needed, or the true root cause of whatever the situation was. You're just avoiding the conflict. You're not really trying to pull it out by the root, and
Which
fix the whole problem.
Right. It was where you said don't avoid conflict, like lean into it. So yeah, just saying the words I'm sorry, that's not what we're talking about. That's a cop out. So that's why we titled this Apologize Genuinely, because you could think I'm apologizing. I'm saying I'm sorry.
Right.
But there's so much more to an apology.
Well, and look at it from the perspective of if you don't think you actually have something to say sorry for, but you're just apologizing just to try and get the situation moved on, that creates two issues. One, that's going to create distrust in your spouse because they may have thought you were actually trying to apologize when you really weren't, so you were lying. So there's that side of it. Or if you're the one that really does need to apologize and you just say it just to move on, then that's still going to create what that's going to do is that's just going to cause you to keep stewing on the situation because you didn't get to actually be heard. And so since you didn't get to be heard, you're just going to keep letting that build up until it circles back again and blows up because the situation was really unsolved to begin with.
Right.
And, we were thinking about this as we were planning this episode. And actually, our 2-year-old is learning to apologize for things right now. She's doing, the typical 2-year-old stuff, hitting and biting and all kinds of stuff.
Yelling, no!
Yeah, all that. And
I call it the terrible twos, but it's just toddler.
Yep.
Terrific toddler.
Yeah. And so typically she just says sorry to move on. That's how her life works right now.
I totally saw that today. I don't know. She did something to you. I think she spit at you or something. She's like, sorry, daddy. Like super fast. Just, I'm going to do it and then say, sorry, daddy. And then run off with a smile.
Yeah. She doesn't understand how to apologize in a heartfelt way or what that means or why she needs to. Albeit that her apologies are very adorable. But as adults, we can't really get by with that cute apology anymore. Just sorry and move on. It's just not true. Once we learn and develop those complex emotions, it makes those type of apologies seem less genuine because they truly are. Now, our 2-year-old doesn't know that yet. She hasn't developed those complex emotions to understand that, but that's why we teach our kids to say sorry when they do something wrong, is so that they start learning that empathy of how the other person felt when something happened.
Yeah, and so in short, we're saying not to say I'm sorry. Like that's not enough. So something else to be mindful of that we've heard is, I'm sorry you feel that way. You think you're being genuine with that statement, but you just put it on the other person.
That's not an apology.
I'm sorry you feel that way. It's not for anything the person saying it did.
Yeah, still passing the blame.
Or, I'm sorry you misunderstood what I said. You misinterpreted what I meant. Or even the worst, I'm sorry, but ... Okay, like, are you sorry? And then you can be like, what about the time you did this? Or it was your fault that those are not apologies, or in our definition, a genuine apology.
Right.
So we're just going to walk through kind of what a genuine apology would look like. There's 7 steps. It sounds a little bit like elementary school teaching here, but hopefully it'll take you and your spouse from just the generic I'm sorry to a genuine apology if you think through these steps.
Right. Yeah. To kick it off, number 1 is say what you're sorry for. So I'm sorry for blank doing this or making you feel this way. Now, go back to what you just said. I'm sorry you feel this way is putting the blame on the other person. I'm sorry for making you feel this way is taking that ownership of it. Just a couple little words change the whole entire saying.
Yeah. And then next is say why it was wrong. So it was wrong because, that's acknowledging that you understand that you shouldn't have said that or done that, and it's wrong.
Right. Number 3, accept full responsibility. I accept full responsibility for what I did or what I said. That just, again, taking that ownership of it rather than passing the blame onto someone else or trying to sidestep the blame. Even if you're not trying to put the blame on someone else, but trying to sidestep it, that's kind of like the I'm sorry, but that's saying I'm only sorry for this part of what I did, not really for everything else that was caused from it. So make sure you take full responsibility.
Number 4 is ask how to make amends. So an example of that would be just asking your spouse, how can I make this better? How can I change? Almost, how can I make this up to you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how can I fix this?
Right. Number 5 is commit to not doing it again. So something like, moving forward, I will do this instead, or I will not do this thing again. Something like that.
Mm-hmm. And then 6 is ask for forgiveness. So we'll get into that in a little bit of how to forgive genuinely, but
5 words, people.
Will you please forgive me? Is that 5?
Yeah, that's 5. Yeah.
Like, I hope that was the 5 words that you said, because I mean, Thomas mentioned our 2-year-old earlier, but we have twin 7-year-olds, and that's the stage they're in is, you know, there's, we help them say, I'm sorry for blank, and this is key for them. We have them say to each other, will you please forgive me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think even as adults, we skip over that step, and that's why we're stuck in the I'm sorry and ready to move on. But those are powerful. Will you please forgive me?
Right. So, yeah. Will you please forgive me? And waiting for them to answer with a yes or a no. I mean, that changes the whole course of everything, because we changed to have our 7-year-old boys start apologizing and asking for forgiveness rather than apologizing and waiting for their brother to say it's okay. Because if you have to apologize for something, it's probably not okay. And so just that mindset shift to not just say it's okay, saying it's okay kind of almost subconsciously gives the person permission to do it again. Well, you said it was okay. Why can't I hit you in the face? That's what you said.
It's not okay.
So I'm sorry I did it this time. It's okay. Yeah. Okay, well, great. That leaves the door open for next time. So, asking for that forgiveness, that's taking responsibility, going back to committing to make the change, how you can do things different again. Those are all key ingredients to getting to that forgiveness part. And then lastly, number 7, thank them. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. And then embrace. We
talked about that in our Good Fight episode, which we referred to on last week's episode as well. That, after conflict and now hopefully you've got that resolution of apologizing and asking and accepting forgiveness, that you thank them for bringing that to your attention. But, that just is full circle when you can say, thank you, you're welcome, and give them a hug.
Yeah, because most of the time in the fight, you don't want that hug. If they try to hug you prematurely, it's gonna be a problem.
This is not a parenting podcast, but we reference our kids so much just because it's such a interesting parallel to see what we're trying to cultivate in our family life and what we're teaching, our 7-year-old boys. And it's hard for them. And I'm like, go do it. And it's like, well, it's really harder for me in my marriage. And that's where, it's not weird for that. We're say like, I'm sorry for this. Will you please forgive me? Yes. I'm like, okay, give them a hug, and maybe they'll get to an age where
they hate that right now.
They'll do a high five. But right now, like, it's just showing them that's like, hey, we can still be friends. We're brothers. I love you. And they see mom and dad do that too. So, and the point of this is if you can apologize genuinely, the person on the other side, it's going to be a lot easier for them to forgive genuinely. And the definition of genuinely is to the fullest. And so it's not enough to just do this great apology. When the person asks for forgiveness, the person hearing that needs to be willing to forgive them genuinely to the fullest degree.
Right. Yeah. So let's flip that back around for a second and talk about what's not forgiveness. Yeah. So, you ask me for forgiveness, and I say, so you say,
will you please forgive me?
Yep.
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 Okay.
Let's do another example.
Will you really? Will you please forgive me?
I'll try.
Okay.
How's that feel?
I was like, this is hurting right now. This is fake. It feels so real. Okay. Will you please forgive me? Now I'm scared to ask.
Yeah, I mean, so just a couple of those things like that. Yes, I will forgive you.
Thanks.
But saying you do, but then actually not, that's not forgiveness. So saying, I'll try, or yep, those are just kind of like the I'm sorry just to get out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the same thing. It's basically saying,
I'm annoyed. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Or, yeah, I want to stop this, but I'm going to still hold this little bit of a grudge so that next time, I've got some ammunition already ready to go. And that's not okay. Or, saying, yes, but, will you forgive me? Yes, but.
Or if you do this, I'll forgive you.
Right.
I mean, that's going back to keep referencing other episodes, but we talked about love unconditionally.
Right.
And that's not loving unconditionally if you give them that ultimatum. Like, I
Right.
won't forgive you unless you do this. That's conditional.
Well, and let's not get that confused, though, because earlier we did say ask how to make amends.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. There are things to say, how can I make this better? Or how can I make this right? And get input from your spouse on that. That's totally okay in the apology section. In the forgiveness section, the forgiveness has to be like straight forgiveness, no conditions attached. Yes, I do. If you've already discussed those things, then, you should be able to just move on and genuinely forgive. If you haven't discussed those things, don't say yes, but say, I'm not ready to because I think we still need to keep talking through this. There's some more stuff I want to say. Just be honest. That's better than saying yes, but that's a forgiveness with a condition attached that your spouse is likely not going to be able to meet. If something happens once that they have to apologize for or ask forgiveness for, there's a good possibility it or something similar to it may happen again. And so if you're going to genuinely forgive them, it can't be a yes, but type of scenario.
Yeah, and I don't want to make light of that. Forgiveness is a lifelong process. That will feel easy in some situations, like we're kind of making light of it. But we do know that sometimes it is downright impossible in different situations to forgive. And that's just kind of something that
I would say it feels downright impossible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's absolutely impossible.
I meant to say it feels.
Right. Yeah.
It feels easy. Missing that key word there. It feels easy in some situations and feels downright impossible in others.
Mm-hmm.
And my comeback to that is that we are affected, yes, by other people's actions, and we're often hurt by their actions, but we're not held accountable for their actions. What we are accountable to is our actions and our reactions to that other person's actions. And that's where forgiveness comes in. So even if I don't like what you did or what you said, my responsibility is to forgive genuinely, to just kind of release my, so I'm not in the wrong.
Right.
To release my part of that.
Right. So what is forgiveness?
It's hard to give and amazing to get.
That's true. Yes, it absolutely is. So this next piece of advice is going to be simply amazing. I've been excited about it since we were planning this episode. The definition of forgiveness is to stop feeling angry or resentful towards someone for an offense, flaw, or mistake. So just to stop.
Just stop.
Once you say you've forgiven them, you stop. So when you get to the point of forgiveness, the argument's done.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you say yes, once you agree to forgive them, the argument's done. That means the attitudes have to be done. You don't get to dwell on it anymore. If you truly do forgive genuinely, it's over. Plain and simple. Now, let me say this one little caveat that I do understand in the middle of a fight, once forgiveness happens, it may take you a few minutes to cool down. I get that. That's just human emotion. That's just, your body needing to just relax and get back to normal. But outside of a few minutes, if you have truly forgiven someone, you should feel that release. You shouldn't be holding that tension in your body anymore, and it should be done, and they should feel that release too. The tension should start to subside pretty quickly. If it doesn't, that probably means there's some unresolved issues in there. So to sum it all up, once you get to the point of forgiveness, the argument is done. Kind of like this podcast. That's just it. I mean, there's no better piece of advice to end with about forgiveness there. So we're just going to stop it. That's all there is, right?
So apologize genuinely and forgive genuinely. And yeah, stop it.
That's it. Stop.
But you don't have to stop talking to us. You can reach out to us anytime on Facebook and Instagram at Marriage Puzzle, or even contact us through our website at marriagepuzzle.com, where we post monthly blog posts as well, and some fun giveaways and things like that on the website. So you could check that out. And we're just here to help solve the marriage puzzle. So glad you're tuning in, and we look forward to joining you next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
See ya.